We're going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us. My name is Fola Alade, and we're going to be having our first mediation practice live. So the essence of what it is we're trying to do is to give people a first-hand experience on what happens at mediation sessions. So can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah. So yeah, it's to give people what an experience of what happens at mediation sessions. Now, confidentiality is one of the bedrocks of mediation. So we find out that most times people don't even know what happens at mediation sessions. So what we're basically trying to do is to take you into a standard mediation session for you to have an idea of what happens essentially. So today I'm going to be the mediator, and then we have two parties. We have Xavier Limited and we have Madden Airline. So we have some mediators who have been appointed to act as parties. So now I will be getting into my role in the next maybe 10 seconds. And when I do, we're going to try it and see, because it's going to be an abridged version of what usually happens at mediation sessions. So that would run through for 1 hour, from 1 till 2. Then between 2 and 3, we're going to take feedback, comments, and questions on my role as a mediator and parties. So the essence of what it is we're trying to do right now is for parties to basically learn and see not only the importance of mediation, but how beneficial mediation is. And I tell everybody that cares to listen that the conversation surrounding mediation is no longer a question of if anymore. It's a question of when, because it is going to take its rightful place as a preferred means of dispute resolution. Thank you very much. So I'm going to get into my role now, and we will begin. First things first, let me take out this noise. 1 second. When people are here. Great. Okay. I'm getting into my role now, everyone. So good afternoon. My name is Fola Alade, and I'm going to be your mediator for today. So in no particular order, can the parties please introduce themselves? I'm seeing Xavier to my left-hand side. So I'll start off with Xavier. Xavier, so who is the MD of Xavier?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Mediator. My party is having a bit of challenge trying to log in, but she will join us very soon. I'm the counsel.
You're the counsel. Yeah. So what's your name?
My name is Natalia.
Okay, I'm sorry. How may I address you?
Just call me Natalia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Please, whenever your party joins, please kindly let us know. Okay, so for Madden Airlines, I see the MD. Can I get to meet you, sir? You're on mute, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Can I get to meet you, sir?
My name is Dr. Professor Nanchang Nangwang, and I am the Managing Director of Madden Airline.
Okay, so sir, how may I address you?
You can address me as Dr. Professor Nanchang.
Okay, if I call you doctor, I hope that won't be out of place.
No. Dr. Professor.
Okay, Dr. Professor. Okay, that is duly noted. Thank you so much, Dr. Professor. I believe you have your counsel here. So can I get to meet you?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Mediator. I'm the counsel for Maiden Airlines. My name is Mrs. Mary Johnson, Esquire.
Mrs. Mary Johnson, Esquire. How may I address you?
You can call me Mrs. Mary Johnson, Esquire. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Mary, then. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Xavier, I can see your hand is up.
Yes, my party is here. The MD, Xavier. Thank you.
Okay, so can I get to meet the MD, please? Okay, I can see maybe she's having a bit of an audio problem. What's her name? So while she sorts it out, then whenever she speaks.
My name is Janet.
Janet. Okay. How may I address her?
Well, I think I will leave that to her. I don't know how she wants to be addressed. She might even decide to give you a different name entirely from the one I gave you. But I need to ask Janet.
Okay, then. Oh, it's fine. So what we'll do is that I would start off, and whenever audio is connected with, I'll take her. So like I said, I would like to welcome everyone to this mediation session. Please, can you all confirm if you can all hear me loud and clear?
Very well.
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So I want to first of all commend parties for choosing mediation as an amicable way of having this issue resolved. It's very important parties understand that I am not a judge. Basically, I'm a facilitator, and what I'm trying to be doing over the next couple of hours is to find an amicable way of having this issue resolved. So my role as a mediator is a facilitator, basically trying to facilitate an amicable resolution of this issue. So when we start, the mediation process is going to be divided into 3 parts. The first part is the introductory session, which is called the plenary, where parties will get to state the case and why they are here. If at any point in time I feel I want to have a private conversation with any of the parties, I will go into what is called a caucus or a confidentiality zone, where whatever parties say to me will be within the confines of it, and hopefully we'll be able to move into conclusion. I think it's also very important before I proceed to state some of the benefits of what it is we're trying to achieve here. First is confidentiality. Confidentiality in the sense that whatever it is we say will be within the confines of this place. And you must have noticed that the respective parties that are here, sorry, I noticed, well, one of the reasons why I did not confirm authority is that I see that both parties are managing directors in their company. If they had been represented by other persons, I probably would have requested for a letter of authority. So like I said earlier on, it's going to be confidential, it's voluntary, and it's without voluntary in the sense that parties are here of their own volition, and it's with and also as a mediator, I'm also neutral in the sense that I'm not expected to take sides with any other person, and it's also without prejudice to the fact that whatever we say here cannot be used in court as evidence. Now, I understand that I understand the delicate situation of things, so it's imperative at this point to state certain ground rules. Top of which is that your phone should be switched off or be on silent. And because we're having a virtual mediation session, can parties please confirm by show of tongue that this mediation session is not being recorded, as that would be a breach of confidentiality? And if you do that, okay, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and and can we also please agree that there will be no interruptions, and parties will please agree to speak in turns? And there should also be no abusive languages, sarcasms, or innuendos. And parties, if at any point in time you feel I'm being partial, kindly please point it out. And if it persists, I would recuse myself from this session. So after all said and done, I don't know whether there is any question for me on anything before we get into the session from Xavier and then Madam. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, Xavier, I can see your hands up.
Yes, my party just reached out to me. She's having a bit of a challenge. She got in, but she's unable to, the audio is having a bit of challenge, but she's trying to log in just in case. I'm communicating with her, if that's okay with you.
Okay, then. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, thank you so much, John. So what we'll just do, my power just take over the role of Xavier Natalia. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, so in no particular order, I'm going to start off with Xavier. So Xavier, could you please tell us why you are here?
Sorry, excuse me. We are actually present here. My MD is here. I mean, I just feel like it's fair that you hear him out as he's currently present while the Xavier, MD sorts themselves out. I mean, she's still trying to get online. So, I just feel like my MD is here, he can go ahead and start talking. Don't you think so, Mr. Mediator?
Yeah, we could also start with
Oh, please. Yes, thank you.
I can see Xavier's hand up. Okay, Xavier, could you please unmute
Yes.
yourself?
I mean, we brought this matter, right? And it's actually we have the right to go first. It's our claim.
Well, what is your party? I mean, she's having challenges coming on. I'm sure it would be best to even speak on the matter, So as we're already here, let Maiden's MD, my MD, speak first, and then we can hear from your party
So
whenever she decides
if
to.
my party is not here, because my party, sent me a message and asked me to go ahead and speak on her behalf. So, I mean, even if she isn't here yet, I can as well speak on her behalf. So if your
so what we can do, is it okay if I refer everyone back to the ground rules? So Mrs. Mary, since she has the authority of a client and in view of the fact that her client is not here, she can as well speak first. Then you can then get to speak. So this is me now leaving my role down. I'm breaking out of character because she's having a network issue. So Xavier is now taking the role of two parts now. You understand, so that she can speak. So back to the role. So Natalia, could you please speak first? Tell us why we are here and what you would like from this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, mediator. That's fair enough. And I apologize for, not obeying the ground rule. I just feel I need to protect my client's interest.
No,
so I wouldn't waste much of our time. It's simple. There was a contract, an agreement for that payment to be done once the aircraft belonging to Madden Airline is cleaned and all that. And we've been doing that for some months, but we're surprised that we didn't get our payment. And my client is owing for 2 months now, November and December in particular. And my client is actually owing the staff. Things are quite difficult. And we've been making demands, asking for this money. And the MD is not even budging. He's not even saying anything. And it's unfair, really. We're asking for our money. For crying out loud, if you had a deal, it's always good to be honest enough and stick to it. Why would we provide services and we don't get paid? That's cheating, really. All we are asking for is our money, and that's it. It's that simple. $100,000. Thank you.
Okay, so if I understand it clearly, you entered into a contract with Madden Airlines, and they have not paid for services, and what you're basically requesting is the $100,000 US, which is supposed to be payment for services rendered, to which they are in areas of. Would that be a summary of what it is you want from the respondents?
Yes, thank you very much. That was great.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my Madden Airline and hear what they have to say. So, Dr. Professor, so could you please unmute yourself and let's have your reaction to this and what you would also want from this session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I raised my hands initially, and I discovered that you've not given me permission to speak. In the absence of the MD of the eggs, what do you call them? The MD is not present, and I'm worried. Can we actually have a conversation in the absence of the MD?
Okay, so yes, because like I said, the MD is not available, but she has a letter of authority to act on behalf of the MD. So that gives her the mandate to speak on the MD's behalf. Yes, okay. Because she counsel in-house that works with Xavier. So because the MD is not around and she works with the MD, she has a letter of authority to act on behalf of the MD, which is why I've allowed her to speak. So I don't know whether that answers the question, Dr. Professor.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so that is fine if we are sure about that, because yeah, I don't actually want to. Yes, so can I speak now?
So can I get your reaction to what has been said and what you would also like from this session? Thank you.
Well, I've listened carefully to what the counsel to Xavier, what do you call them? I've listened carefully to what she said, and it amazes me. And I am just wondering, she called herself a lawyer. And, well, this is our position. First of all, before the commencement of this, let me say, before we officially.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mediator.
Yeah, Learning Council, please, it's important that remember some of the ground rule we said that there will be no interruption. I can assure you that when Dr. Professor finishes, I'll get to hear what you have to say. You know, when you were speaking.
No, it will have to be after I've spoken.
Yeah.
I would speak, and then she can get her.
Yes, you will speak.
Yes, of course.
Okay, Mr. Mediator, but I think you should speak to the MD of Madden to watch his language, because it's quite disrespectful for him to say.
No, I'm sorry, you called us cheaters, and nobody interrupted during that time. You used the word that you were being cheated by us, and we let you speak.
So Mrs. Mary and Mrs. Natalia, let's remember the ground rules, and the ground rules have to do with
Natalia. I'm not a Mrs.
And I can assure you, everyone will have a say.
Exactly.
But if we don't allow proper communication, things may get out of proportion. So, Mrs. Can we just allow Dr. Professor finish? I'll hear what Mrs. Mary has to say. What you can please do is just to highlight some of the reservations you have, and it will be addressed. Can we do that, please?
Okay. Okay, thank you. I promise not to interrupt again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Dr. Professor, as you were explaining, could you please continue? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fola. I really appreciate the way you handle the situation. And that actually calms my mind, and I think I'm okay. So as I was saying before, with the presence of the lawyer on the other side, the lawyer should know that there is no agreement where parties have not signed anything to show for it. Now, between Xavier Limited and my company, there is no agreement as to these services. And although we have drafted an agreement to the effect that we are going to accept their services to clean up our aircraft, as well as for them to offer some laboratory services on our aircraft, and then we are going to pay them for it. But we have not signed. We have not officially commenced. But I haven't commenced the services. Now, we find ourselves in a situation where they've dropped over about 4 invoices in our offices. I expect that when you drop the first invoice and it is not attended to, a reasonable person should actually approach.
Dr. Professor, I'm sorry, I would have to interject. Can we remember one of the ground rules about the use of language? You saying using that might be a bit out of context. So could we be a bit more circumspect about what we use so we don't have a reaction?
Well, I apologize.
Sorry. Can we speak freely? I mean, because he really needs to express himself.
Yes,
he really needs to express himself. He has not said anything. I mean, when the other counsel of Xavier called us cheaters, we didn't interject, but we need to speak freely here so that we can get it all out.
So, Mrs. Mary, I understand where you're coming from. When I think that word must have actually gotten lost on me. But like I said, what we're trying to avoid is a scenario where conversations get blown out of proportion. So, and if you can remember, we stated certain ground rules. So what I'm just trying to do within the context of communication is to ensure that it is amiable and tempers don't get high. So that was one of the reasons why I called attention to it. I don't know what I've been able to answer your question.
Okay, please, MD, speak freely. Let us get this resolved quickly.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So, as I said earlier, we have we drafted an agreement. We are supposed to put finishing touches to those agreements and then commence officially. But, we acknowledge the fact that they went ahead to start. And my assumption was like, oh, these people are really, really interested in working with us. And possibly they are giving a trial for us to be able to see and the level to which they can offer quality services. So when they commenced and then we realized that they started dropping invoices in our office, I was just wondering, what's actually the problem? And the first invoice, the second invoice, third invoice, fourth invoice, no response. At least I expect that they send a representative or the MD comes to our office to find out what actually is the problem, but they've not done so. So as I said, this agreement was prepared as at 2020, and then what actually transpired in 2020, even as at today, we have not actually recovered from the impact of the COVID-19. And so if there is something that ought to be done, we expect that before they commence, they will come for us to have a formal official commencement date. Now they've dropped 4 invoices. When is the commencement assuming? When did this contract or this agreement commence? Nothing. Even when the counsel to Xavier spoke, they've not mentioned when they commence, when they actually commence their services. We only have 4 invoices dumped at our offices. So now they are claiming percentage, 5%. They are also claiming the $100, that's about $25,000 per month, without actually showing that, yes, we have actually commenced officially for the purpose of payment. If they want to test run their services on our aircraft, we were gracious enough to give them the opportunity to test run and possibly check out some of their workers who may be able to deliver services appropriately. I don't need to bring to your attention some of the activities of their workers on our aircraft, especially when it comes to the laboratory services they were to render. That is just aside, but it bothers me. Now, as far as we are concerned, there is no agreement. We don't have any agreement. We have not asked them to commence any work on our aircraft. And as such, we are not in a position to pay any amount of money to them. As simple as that. And then if they have a counsel in the drafted agreement, which is not executed, it has not been signed. If they check, there is a termination clause, assuming we have actually commenced. It is expected that the moment you do not receive payment for the first work you claim you have rendered, you should stop, and that will be an end. So despite the fact that that is included in the contract that is unexecuted, they still went ahead, continue while dumping those things on our offices. Now they have even brought embarrassment to our company. Our auditors will come to the office only for them to see all these kind of things, and then they have caused a lot of problem, even for me as the managing director of that company. I have been trying to sort out that thing, and all of a sudden, they just file a matter in court. I consider that very offensive, and I'm very, very angry about it. And for that reason, officially, let us go the way it is supposed to be. We do not have any agreement or any contract with them, and so we are not in a position to pay anything they are claiming from us. That's our position.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Professor. So by way of summary, you said an agreement was drafted, but it had not commenced officially. But the applicant went ahead to start delivering services, and you received invoices, the first, second, third, and fourth invoices from them. And on the strength of the fact that you have not exactly started, you don't have an executed agreement between both parties, you are not in any position to pay for the services rendered. Does that basically capture a summary of what you said, Dr. Professor?
Yes, in addition to the fact that they are just using our aircraft to test run their services and the abilities of their workers, and we gave them that privilege. So they ought to even pay us for that.
Okay, so that's duly noted. So what would you want from this session? Your response is that you're basically not owing them anything. Is that your position?
I want them to apologize to us and let's go home, and then they can thank us for not taking drastic action against them.
Exactly. Trying to tarnish our reputation. Please,
okay,
they
so
should.
I'm going to get to you, Mr.
Apology is very necessary. Public apology.
Is it okay if I finish with them, Dr. Professor? Then I'll get to hear what you have to say, Mrs. Mary, if you don't mind. Is it okay if I
okay, yeah, I'm waiting for my turn.
Okay, Mr. Mediator, I'm actually very patient, but I'll just hold my peace.
Yeah, is it okay? I believe I've been able to capture the summary of what you have said. So I'm just going to hear what your counsel has to say, and then we'll move over to the second stage of trying to find some middle point between both parties. So, Mrs. Mary,
yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mediator.
Okay, so
it would be nice. It would be nice you time them. I was straight. I went straight to the point.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Nobody timed you.
A long time.
Madam, allow us
time.
Usually when sessions get this heated,
I think you should stop raising your voice at me. I don't know what your Mrs. Mary. Really? Because why would
what are you talking about timing? What are you talking about timing?
Talking for almost 20 minutes.
No,
we have something to say. That's why we're speaking. I mean, we will not speak if we didn't have anything to say. We have the time. This is a sensitive matter. You don't realize what you brought here. You brought us here.
No.
So allow us to speak.
Can I ask that we add one more feature to some of the ground rules, which states that when emotions get into play, I may have to mute. So maybe what I would have to do, and this has to do with, I may have to take away the admin privilege of having parties unmute themselves. Now, the essence of this really is to manage emotions. So I just thought I should just let you know. So I'll put parties on mute, and whenever parties need to speak, could you indicate by raising your virtual hand? The essence of this is not to take away the right to speak, but to manage situations and not let this get out of proportion. So that's what I
totally understand.
That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take away the admin preview of allowing people unmute themselves.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
thank you.
From there.
They should speak on.
So it's yes. So I can speak now.
So yes, you can speak. You can speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mediator. Is everybody muted? Because I don't want any interruptions when I'm talking.
Muted. Yes.
Okay. So I support 100% everything that my MD has just said. In fact, in actual fact, we find this quite laughable that we've been dragged here by them on this mock of a case. I mean, it's a mockery. I mean, he said everything basically. The contract was not signed.
Remember
by both parties, or not just us, so by both parties, including themselves. So how they went ahead to carry out work on a contract that they didn't even sign is I mean, it's a joke. It really is laughable. You went and carried out work. There was no go ahead. There was no, I mean, the signing of the contract would have been the go ahead. Nobody signed the contract. That's one. Two, we didn't pay. You did November's work. We didn't pay. There's a clause in the contract that says failure to pay, non-payment means that the contract has been terminated. You did November's work, cleaning. We didn't pay. You still went ahead and did December, did January, did February. I mean, come on, what is this? I mean, it must be a charity they're running, because you're working month after month and not receiving payment, and you're still continue. You now came with invoices to the office, claiming $100,000. I mean, on a contract that nobody signed. I find it quite laughable. And now you're taking us to court, dragging us here to mediation. MD has said it now, how it's even, you know, the fact that we have all these invoices sitting there looking like we're not paying people, paying our contractors, is damaging to the reputation of the company. So yes, we're here for a public apology, not even a apology in this room or in this session, a public apology, because this has gone beyond when they took us to court. That's already public record. Everybody already knows that Xavier has dragged Maiden to court. So in the same light, we're looking for the public apology. We're not paying any money because no contract was signed by both parties. And the fact that payment was not made from the first month already terminated that contract, if at all it was even executed in the first place. So I'm supporting everything my MD has said, and this is what I'm adding to it as well.
So if I understand you, Mrs. Mary, you align with what your client has said, and you also said that apart from the fact that nobody's signing the contract, no payment will be made, and you're also requesting for an apology.
Oh, a public apology. Okay,
so now I'm going to take Mrs. Natalia's response, because I think she was trying to say something. Then after I'm done with Mrs. Natalia, we may have to move into a caucus session. And like I explained, a caucus session is basically a confidential session where I get to have private conversations with parties, devoid of outside the confines of this place. So once I'm done with what Mrs. Natalia has said, I would have a conversation first with Madden and then come back and have a conversation with Xavier. So Mrs. Natalia, you were trying to say something. Could you please unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mediator. It is good that we're here today, really. It's quite funny how someone would expect that our services are actually free. Even in Freetown, nothing is free there. So you tell me you've not signed any contracts. I came to your office, we spoke, and you said you're going to draft this contract, and it was drafted. What had happened? And I said, okay, we need to sign. He said, no, go ahead. My lawyer will finish up and then we'll sign it. Just go ahead, we'll pay you. And based on that oral agreement, I went ahead. Even at the second time we provided the services, the MD said, no, there's no problem. You know, I've had a rumor that there was some fraud going on there, that they don't pay their contractors, but I chose to give them the benefit of the doubt. So I'm surprised that after they're telling me that we are running a charity organization, and first time, second time, because we kept asking for our money and all we keep getting that, don't worry, we'll lump everything together. So now it was getting like, it was looking as if there's going to be fraud. And then I went and said, please give us our money. This was not our agreement at the beginning. Now release the documents for us to sign. You kept saying your lawyer's not in town, he traveled and all that. I mean, who says that contract is only limited to when it's signed? But anyway, all this they are talking about is just story. What we want is money for our services. And if they refuse to pay us, we'll take it even to social media and let the world know how very fraudulent they are. Maybe this is how they've been ripping people off, telling us we are, hiding under COVID-19. Who does that? Okay, assuming, but not considering, you're telling us that the first time we're not paid, second time we are not paid, and we still carried on. Why didn't you tell us, okay, we're not paying you, please don't provide any more services? Yet to keep your airline looking very lovely and, and they don't want to pay us for our services. They will pay us 100,000 naira and nothing more. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mrs. Mary. So if I understand you clearly, you said the services were rendered.
My name is not Mrs. Mary.
Oh, sorry, Mrs. Natalia.
Yeah,
my apologies. Services were rendered.
Natalia, no Mrs. I'm not married. I'm single and I'm proud.
Okay, so Miss Natalia, my apologies. So in summary, services were rendered and efforts were made to sign the agreement, but for some reasons it was not done. And you don't feel that should be a basis for why you should not be paid for services. I don't know what that pretty much encapsulates.
Yes, specific performance, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Part of
so let's remember that right now we're in a mediation session, so we can't exactly be talking about specific performance right now, Mrs. Natalia. So we'll just try and see what we can do within the confines of what we have here. So right now, so Miss Natalia, my apologies. So I'm going to go into a private session with Madden Airlines. So I'm going to have a conversation with them and I'll get back to you. So while so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a breakout room and move Mrs. Mary and Dr. Professor there. So while I'm with them, could you please also try and just think of creative ways by which this session will be resolved, and I will be back. So for the purpose of what you're doing right now, and so everyone can follow, Miss Natalia was going to put on mute, and then I'm going to assume that I'm in a private session with them so that everybody can follow. So Dr. Professor and Mrs. Mary.
Yes.
Can we talk about the services rendered by Xavier?
I mean, it's a joke.
Yes.
It's just a joke. Look at her dropping words like fraud and, I mean, come on.
Mrs. Mary, what we try to look at in mediation is this. It's always forward ever, backward never. If for every time we try to dissect what's said, we are not going to make progress here. And that's one. And two, I also crave your indulgence. Like what I always try to do, parties would always speak. But mediation is party driven. So most times we always have to give priority to parties to speak first, and then I will get back.
I know. I'm just highlighting her mindset, because she's coming from the perspective that this is a fraudulent setup from our own side. We are cheating. She's been dropping words that show the way she thinks. So if we're moving forward now, how do we do that with someone that has this sort of mindset? Because clearly she's not even seeing it from our own perspective either.
They need to apologize for that.
Damage their reputation.
And we'll go to social media. Are they threatening us?
Exactly. Threatening us. On top of the fact that she's even claiming we're fraudulent, we're cheaters. I mean, we're dealing with people that are just not, on our own level, to be honest.
Okay, so we will get to that, but can we first of all talk about the services rendered to your company? Dr. Professor, do you have a problem with services rendered, first of all, to your company? Let's start off with that. Let's first of all, so what we try to do, look at in mediation is that as much as we try to infuse law into it, sometimes we first of all analyze the facts on ground. They will now look at the issue of the law, because right now there are two apparent things. First is the issue of the execution or non-execution of the agreement. That's on one part. Then the second has to do with service delivery. Now, what we are saying here is confidential. It's between myself and yourself without her being there. So let's first of all, so let's first of all put aside the fact that the agreement was not signed. Let's talk about the service. Did they actually render services to your company, Dr. Professor?
No, we are not denying the fact that they rendered services. And we are saying that they are rendering it and they are using our aircraft as a test ground. And we graciously oblige them.
So if I may ask, did you at any point in time try to stop them from rendering those services, especially when the first invoice was dropped? Was there some sort of communication to them in any way for them to stop? You can speak, Mrs. Mary.
Exactly. Did we know? Did they inform us that they started? I mean, crying out loud, the contract has not even been signed. She's saying that they were asking for the contract and we were holding it. I don't know where she gets this story from. Whether she's just making it up because they have to find a reason for what they've done, or how they've gone ahead and done work on a contract that was just verbal and not signed. Even if it has been agreed verbally, I mean, she's a counsel, she should know better. This is business we're talking about, and it's not small chicken change. We're talking about this $100,000. So you don't go and start doing something without proper legal documentation, legal authority. So nobody signed this contract.
Mr. Fola, you see, the issue is that if you are requesting for payments are not just done by the MD. Payment has to go through the formal channels. You go through the account department, they go through all the necessary. At best, mine is to just sign, but there must be proof that there is a contract, there is agreement. They are not just contract stuff. They are. It's not. It is an official services they are rendering. It's not someone we say, okay, we'll just contact for the moment, come and render a service for today and go. No, it's a formal arrangement. And that is not done. And how are we expected to actually comply with the absence of a formal agreement? How do you communicate to the management? how do we convince them that we are not just trying to siphon money from the company?
Exactly.
And coupled with the fact that, we have some issues, internal issues. I'm saying this because it is just, you said, between us, and it's not going to get out. We have some issues in the company that has to do with financial misappropriation from the management and some of these top officials in our organization. And we're trying to deal with it, and then they are just heaping and heaping, complicating issues for us.
Look, the truth of the matter is, yes, we don't need to, open our bum here to say it for lack of a better description.
We know
they
they
rendered the services. So
we are not denying that.
Doctor, let's discuss what we agreed. Because if based on the way this council is behaving, Doctor, I can tell you that she's not going to let it go. She's not going to drop it. Can we move forward on what we agreed with? This is what we can offer, and we are not budging, Mr. Mediator.
Okay, so within the So I must first of all commend, your proactive nature towards trying to have this matter resolved, and the issue of the financial having your company, of course, because it was said in confidence, is not something I can take out. So what I'm going to leverage this conversation on is the fact that you're looking towards this matter being resolved. So they have requested $100,000 US.
No. We can give them a token. We'll call it a token toward that, because there's no way.
In fact, they have to first of all withdraw that statement of fraud that they heard. Where they were gossiping, and busy telling people that we don't pay our workers, we are fraudulent. They have to first of all withdraw that statement. Before,
yes.
So by way of context, Mrs. Mary and Dr. Professor, first is a withdrawal of the fraudulent of the statement made, accusing your company of fraud. Then the second is the token. Can we put a figure to that token, Dr. Professor? What are we looking at in terms of a token? Because you see, the interesting thing about mediation, and one of the reasons why I like where we are, is that we'll move to the second phase, which is negotiation. So what we're trying to do right now is that they have $100,000 US, and you're about to make some kind of counter offer to that. So by way of context, what are you looking at in terms of an amicable resolution of this, so that I can know what to take back to Miss Mary for an amicable resolution? So what are you looking at? Is there a window in terms of the token you're looking at, Dr. Professor?
Well, I think let me give them this option. Let's assume they forget about their claim, and then we talk about a better arrangement on how we can continue our relationship. What do you think about that?
Okay, so as a mediator, I'm not allowed to, for want of a better way to put it, suggest solutions. I'm only supposed to guide and facilitate an amicable resolution. Now, you have requested for a withdrawal of the fraudulent statement, and you mentioned two things. First of all, you mentioned the token, and I'm now asking for the option of a cancellation of the debt for you to have a proper working relationship with them.
Exactly. MD, I don't agree with that, because we let's settle this one and know whether there is even a working relationship that can still be salvaged after this point. Because at this point, I don't really see it going any further. But let's first of all settle this issue before we start redesigning a new contract with them, or whatever the intention is. Why I was saying a token was because we had agreed that if it looked like this was not going to get settled with us just walking away without paying anything, we can offer a token amount towards it. Because yes, we agree that services were rendered, but it wasn't rendered as per the terms of the contract, or as the terms that we agreed, based on the fact that if payment is not made, you withdraw. I mean, payment determines that whether the contract continues or not. The contract should have been terminated by November, when they didn't get that payment in November. Do you understand? But they decided to go ahead and all that. So we're willing to pay for November, because maybe they had, she said from the beginning that the MD had agreed that go ahead with it. So let's assume that there was that agreement for them to start the work. They started and they did November's cleaning, right, MD? So we're willing to pay for November because that was where they were told to go ahead. When they didn't get the payment for November, that should have terminated the contract, but they didn't pay attention to that clause. They still persisted. So we're willing to pay for November and we'll just take the rest that they were just doing a charitable service for us.
So, Mrs. Mary, so here's the thing. Are we relying on an unexecuted agreement? Because if I can remember clearly what you said, the basis was that the agreement was drafted, but it was not signed and it had not commenced officially. So if you are now making, so is there an agreement that was signed between both parties to state that? Okay, so I'm getting a bit confused. Could you explain that for me to understand?
As to what point? What part?
You're relying on the contracts. I'm wondering which.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it from their perspective, right? Okay. They went ahead to carry out the contract on their end. Okay. They went ahead with all the terms and conditions. They went ahead to clean as per how the contract said the cleaning would be carried out and so on and so forth. And they started in November as per the due date on the contract, right? So if they're working according to the terms of the contract, they should also have acknowledged the term that said if payment is not made, that terminates the contract. That clause is in the same contract that they're working on. So when they did cleaning in November, they sent in their invoice and they did not receive payment for that month, for that invoice, that should have been where they would have terminated the contract since they were acting upon the contract from their own end.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going, that's what I'm working with here.
Okay, so we can quickly, I can have something to take over to Miss Mary, because I'm sure she's waiting. So what we have
are you saying that you are going to tell her?
No, that's why I would like to reconfirm what we take back to her. First is the withdrawal of the fraudulent statement. Then second is the payment of November of the work done in November.
That's $25,000.
$25,000. Okay.
Yes.
Then are we the one raised by Dr. Professor about a future working relationship? Do you want to add that to that, or do you want me to take that off the list?
Doctor, it's your call.
Well, my proposal is that I acknowledge the fact that they are doing a good work, and when you are going to have a relationship with someone, I expect that you have an understanding. You should be patient, and then you discuss terms. And business are not done that way. So if they will forfeit the payment, that is out of their goodwill, having tarnished our reputation, and then we can now continue looking at the future. Let's continue a relationship. So I still stand by that if the condition I stated is maintained.
So here's my confusion, Dr. Professor and Mrs. Mary. I need to know what it is to take back to them. I know we have a withdrawal of the fraudulent statement. Mrs. Mary is requesting for payment of November. Your good self is saying that, you know what, let's not have any payment. Let's clear everything and look towards a working relationship. So what do I go with?
No, you can go with all, depending on which one they prefer.
No, they are not going to take a non-payment MD. They won't take a non-payment agreement. So let's work with the 1 month agreement that they have paid
1 month in addition to a futuristic relationship.
That's it, exactly. Let's merge it like that. Exactly.
So if I understand you clearly, first is the one you're requesting for the withdrawal of the fraudulent statement, the payment of the first month in November, plus the possibility of a working relationship with that. Does that encapsulate what it is you want to take back to them?
Very well.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
So, okay. So what I'm going to do is that even though we have something to work with, mediation has to do with us looking for ways to have issues resolved. I will still please crave your indulgence to still keep on thinking of creative ways. While I take your proposal down to Miss Mary to hear what she has to say, and to try to Miss Natalia to hear what she has to say, and then I'll get back to you. So,
All right, thank you so much.
thank you so much. So I'm now going to miss. So I'm so sorry, Miss Natalia, for taking so much of your time. It's all in a bid to have an amicable
Thank
resolution.
you.
So
It's okay.
I've spoken at length to them, and what they have more or less instructed me to bring by you by way of proposal is they were not too comfortable with the fact that you insinuated that they were fraudulent. And I think that they would want you to withdraw that statement. That's number one. And two, they're also making a proposal of the payment of the first month, and also to explore the possibility of a future working relationship with them. So I'd like to have your take on this. So like I said, what we're doing right now is called the bargaining stage, and where we're essentially trying to look at what both parties have. So before you respond, Ms. Natalia, what I try to do in my sessions is to be as clear as possible. We're trying to find what is called a ZOPA, a zone of possible agreement. So within the confines of what they have said, what would your response be?
Okay, so well, I said what I said in the heat of anger because I felt they were just, I apologize to them, but I want to be sure before I tender that apology that we're getting our money. That's one. And about working with them in the future, it's not a problem if this will not repeat itself. As a matter of fact, I've ensured that the agreements are signed before we commence, because with all that played out here today. Nevertheless, we are open to a relationship with them. We're open to that, but it's important that they pay us for what services we have rendered.
Now, on that, they're requesting to pay for 1 month, and then that's the 1 month plus a possibility of a working relationship with them, and this time things will be done properly. That's the proposal. Is this something
that's not possible? 1 month. They're talking about $25,000, which will not even go anywhere. I mean, we have workers to pay. We're asking for 100,000, and we're not going back. And if okay, for the sake of the future, we want to look at future relationships and all that. We can decide to knock off something, but definitely not 5,000 now. That's ridiculous, really.
Okay, so if we're looking at so what counter offer are you making to the 25,000 for the payment of 1 month? If I ask because you said you're willing to knock off something, so I would like to put more context to that. What are you looking at in terms of a counter offer?
Okay, so I don't intend for us to waste time, really. So the least I discussed with my MD, the least we are willing to take is 80,000 naira or nothing more. We can't go below that. Yes, $80,000, beg your pardon. We are not going below that. It's the least we can go. We are still open to the $100,000 if they are going to pay us. But if they are not able to, because I know they mentioned COVID-19, which is what most people blame, and dodge on that. But because of COVID-19, considering how a lot of people suffered that period, we also were affected. The least we are going to take is $80,000, and we are also running the apology as well. Apologize to them and let them understand everything was said in the head of anger. But that's all. Nothing less than $80,000. Thank you.
Okay, so what I usually do when we get to this stage, especially since parties are very open towards settlement, and has always worked for me, is when parties talk to each other rather than talking at each other. Would you be willing to have a conversation with Amanda and MD, whereby both of you just basically try and have a conversation with yourselves and agree? Is that something you'll be open to? I ask because because what I'm trying to do is to avoid me taking the information back to them, especially now that we're settling. So is this a possibility, having everybody back in the room and then having a conversation on this? Because now we're making progress. We're making progress.
Yes, that's okay with me.
Okay.
Provided that you would tame the council. She's fire, and I don't like to deal with fire. But okay. I'm equal to the task, really. But then again, we're here to make peace. you know. So I'm open. I would tame my emotions as much as possible.
Thank
So
you.
I'm open. We can have a meeting. We can have
Let me
one-on-one.
take
That's
that
okay.
request back to them and also find out whether they're also open to having a conversation with you. Because I believe this is a matter that can be settled, especially now that parties are willing to shift positions. And I must also commend you for being very open-minded about this. So I'll just have this conversation with them, and then we can all
Thank you.
meet back and then talk about it. So Dr. Professor
Okay.
and Mrs. Mary. So like I said, I tried to explain to Miss Natalia that when it comes to situations like this, especially when parties are beginning to shift positions, it's always better when parties talk to each other rather than talking at each other. If you notice no. So here's the thing. I believe we've already gotten to a point where we are making progress. No, they've also made a counter offer of $80,000 along with tendering an apology for the statement that was made. So I believe that when we get there, yes. No. So here's the thing, Mrs. Mary. When we get back to may I crave your indulgence for something, Mrs. Mary? You know, mediation essentially is party driven.
Yes.
So can I just crave your indulgence that we allow Dr. Professor and Mr. Taylor have a conversation, and then we'll take it up from there. Can we please do that?
I will. MD, please. You need to really speak very well when that happens, because you know she's using counsel sense as well, even though she's representing her MD. You know, so if I hear any legalese that she brings into it, I will step in, mediator, because I don't want her to think she's taking advantage of our MD.
You may not be able to. Remember our ground rules. And, you know, I asked you whether you're okay with that.
Yes, I understand it. I understand it very well.
I can promise you one thing.
I'm worried about her.
Yeah, I can promise you one thing, Mrs. Mary. Parties would speak. But like I said, when we keep having parties interjecting and all that, if you notice one, we're going to blow this thing out of proportion.
All right. No problem. No problem, Mr. Mediator.
Of the spirit of mediation being party driven. Can I just give an indulgence?
No problem. No problem.
Okay. So I'm bringing parties back in. So Miss Natalia, Dr. Professor, and Mrs. Mary, I would like to thank you all for being open-minded and shifting positions. And I must comment, we've done a pretty good job from where we started off to where we are right now. So what we have on the table now, ladies and gentlemen, is the withdrawal of the fraudulent statement, which Ms. Natalia has said she will take. And there's an 80-25 offer on the table, with Martin Islands making an offer of $25,000 plus the possibility of a working relationship, and Ms. Natalia saying $8,000. So if you look at the difference between both of them, well, what we are looking at now is not even 80-25. We're looking at the difference of $60,000. So can parties have a conversation with each other? Dr. Professor and Ms. Natalia, could you please unmute yourself and let's talk about it? I believe this is something that can be settled. So I don't know who wants to go first. Ms. Natalia, do you want to go first? Dr. Professor, do you want to go first? Let's have a conversation. I'll just be here to constantly remind parties of the ground rules. So, Dr. Professor, on a lighter note, should she start first? You know what they say, ladies first, or do you want to go first?
Well, ladies first after the men. Let's the MD go.
Okay. You know particular order. So, Miss Natalia, so can I have your reaction to this?
Okay. Dr. Professor, I'm sorry. I called your company fraudulent. It was just in the heat of the moment, and I apologize. I withdraw such a statement, and I will not be going on social media. I know I said I was going to do that, but seeing that you're willing to settle and you're making offer, even though the amount you're offering is not, this COVID-19 hit everybody, really. So you have to really be considerate with your offer. So, but having said, I'm very sorry that I called your company fraudulent. It's just one of those things. My apologies. I don't mean it. Thank you.
Okay, so with regards to your counteroffer, would you like to have a conversation with him about that?
Yes. Yes. So I thank you for shifting ground, I would say, because initially you're not willing to make any payment, or for even considering making payment, thank you. But that offer of $25,000 is actually way too small, because we're talking about some form month here. We're talking about workers who have not been paid, that have families. We're talking about taxes, that we have to pay and meet up. We're talking about items that we have bought in the, your aircraft is not a small aircraft. Imagine the professionalism we put into it. So it goes a long way, really. And our workers have really been threatening as well. I'm also under heat, also is the MD. So we are willing to, come down, but what we have come down to is 80,000, and really we can't go below that, because any other thing would be quite disastrous on the part of, we not being able to pay our workers. So I would ask that you really consider, look at how we started and the things that we did. You also agree that we did a very good job. So put that in, consideration. Thank you.
So, Dr.
Well,
Professor, can I get your reaction to what Ms. Natalia just said?
Well, let me first confess that I didn't know that the council could be this calm. And, she even smiled. That's interesting. When I was listening to her speaking the other time, wow, it was like fire. So I really appreciate that fact. And I want to acknowledge the fact that they've actually done a good job. And that is why I feel that sensibly, there is need to maybe possibly continue the relationship, if not for all these problems. So on my goodwill, I will propose that since she offered $80,000, she's proposing $80,000. She didn't make mention of the possibility of continuing the relationship. So maybe she feels the $80,000 is sufficient to, once that is paid, and then we can look for other service.
No. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm actually willing to work with you. I mean, it was a lovely experience cleaning your aircraft. So we are open to further relationship with you in a much, better way. Thank you.
So what?
Wow.
So by way of so Dr. Professor, what's your response to what she has just said, so that I see we are working towards an agreement. So if you're going to have to agree on something, I need to have definite terms. So what's your reaction to what she has said right now?
Okay. Just as I said, I'm actually in a good mood, because I have seen possibly that they are actually open to. So let me offer 50% of what they are claiming, in addition to a proper documentation for the purpose of continuing our relationship, because I must confess they're actually doing a good job. Just for the situation, and apologies accepted, really. Yes.
Okay, so help me on a lighter note. Some of us don't. Mathematics is not too good. So if you're going to put 50% to figures, does that come down to $40,000 or how much does that come down to?
Yeah, ordinarily, if it is that the 80% she's offering, but out of my goodwill, considering the situation and how their willingness, we're ready to pay $50,000.
$50,000. Okay, yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, so Miss Natalia, can I get your reaction to that?
Okay, that's okay. We'll go with that. I'll work with that. Just find a way to augment it. I mean, consider the fact that we're going to be getting a brief with them soon, so we can always work with that. So we work out things.
Okay, so okay, thank you so much. Mrs. Mary, can I get your reaction to what your client has just said? Because what we have now is a working relationship between both parties, in which the Xavier has considered $50,000 plus the possibility of a working relationship. So
Yeah, I mean, if my
hear what you have to say.
well, it's fine. I mean, if my MD is fine and he's proposed $50,000, then we've reached an agreement more or less where we're happy to move on. And we just want to note as a, moving forward that, all contracts must be signed by both parties, so that mistakes like this don't occur again.
Okay.
And maybe what we want to do as well, MD, is have a written instruction on when, they should proceed, so that we have that documented as well going forward.
Okay.
Yes, so that, yes, we don't have this occurrence again. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare the terms and send to your good selves to have a look at, and then we'll print and then we'll execute. So I hope that's okay by both parties.
Yeah. Fine.
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, that's.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone, both of you, for at least giving mediation a chance. And I breathe the hope that the business relationship both parties will have will be a fruitful one. And thank you very much. So, roll cut. Damn, that was a good one. Wow. So now, we're done with the mediation session. So what we're going to do right now is that we're going to take feedback, comments, and questions from those that viewed this. So, well, first of all, so what we're going to do is that we're going to be open to listening to what you have to say. So if you have any question, if you have any comment, kindly raise your hand and the parties would respond. So right now, like I said, I acted as the mediator. Mrs. Lolia acted as Mrs. Mary, who is a Madden Airlines counsel. So if there are questions, really, if the question can be directed at me, it can be directed at them in their capacity that they acted. And I must also add that they're all also seasoned mediators too, I must add. And I also want to acknowledge the presence of some of my teachers here. I see Mrs. Chinwe here. I see Mr. Ken and all that. So I'll start off with Mrs. Chinwe. Okay. Please, could you unmute yourself? Thank you so
much. Well done, Fola, and everyone on the participant table. Very interesting session, and it's really good this has been organized. It's one of a kind, and the dispute, interesting one. I can only imagine what was going on in everyone's minds because, as a mediator, your face remains blank, like for last face, but in your minds, all sorts of things are going on, like, oh, this person sounds fraudulent, this person sounds unreasonable, So what I'll just commend is the mediator for excellent questioning skills, and that's one thing that in mediation is it's the best thing you can ever do, apart from maintaining confidentiality. You have to ask the right questions. You have to remain neutral. Parties will always try to push you, like the MD of Madden was saying, what do you think? And you clarify that, I can't give any opinion, it's your dispute and all. Some people might not understand how it really works when it's not online dispute resolution. So times when you say you're going into caucus, it looked like everyone was still in the room, but actually it was a private session, and the presumption is that no, the other parties were not listening in to the confidential caucus session. But was something you did that's quite different, and I think because of COVID and how we started doing online mediation, when you're trying to enforce the ground rules where people are not supposed to interrupt, you use the Zoom feature to mute everyone. I found that very interesting, and I thought, if there was a mad Natalie in the house, in real life, she would say, okay, you've practically removed from session, I'm not going on. You could have emotions to that point. So that's something to watch if you're doing online dispute resolution. That feature might be seen as shutting someone out, but since it was probably communicated from the beginning as well as the ground rules, then it's okay. But also, just for other participants, it was in a physical room. You can't even shut anyone up. That's when you probably want to break into a private session or excuse one party or the other. It can be very interesting in real life, but I really enjoyed watching this mediation session. And of course, I remain an advocate for mediation. Well done, Fola and everyone.
Thank you so much. So at the risk of putting you on the spot, Mrs. CEO, which do you actually prefer? Do you prefer a physical mediation session online? Ms. Chinwe, I was going to ask, I said, which of the sessions do you prefer?
So Fola, honestly, I prefer a physical mediation session. It's maybe it's because of what I'm used to. I prefer physical because online, that idea of confidentiality, yes, I'm seeing only one person's video, but I don't know who else is in the room. You know, because in mediation, you have the parties to the dispute, but you have also other participants, influencers, somebody's husband, somebody's, colleague, So I don't want to start imagining that behind the counsel for Madden Airlines, there's someone poking her and telling her things to say, or behind the Xavier's counsel or behind the MDs. Do you understand? I don't want to, have that worry. Then network can be funny. Yeah, at a time when you're trying to manage what's going on in real time, and then someone's network just goes off. You get to the MD for Xavier. I don't know it's part of the script or it happened in real life. Person didn't join the session. That could really just throw people off. So I prefer the physical session. It's more difficult to manage. I mean, I've had times when it's like some people are good about to punch each other, but I still prefer the physical one. I'm not taking away the benefits of the online dispute resolution, particularly where you have parties in different physical locations. You want to save money, you want to save time, and also both work. But sometimes when you're in the room, you're able to read the room better. It's more difficult for the mediator because the emotions are stronger when you see the full body than when you see the face. Yeah. So yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Seo. Really appreciate this. Also, I'm going to take this in order of what I see on my screen. So we have a QW5KCM9P. Could you please unmute yourself? Then after that, I'll take Catherine and I'll take Abdullahi Yahaya. So could you please unmute yourself? Okay. I think I'll just take Catherine then. Catherine, could you please unmute yourself? Yeah, Catherine, could you unmute? Okay, yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Catherine. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Fantastic session, and I totally enjoyed every bit of it, especially when the emotions were really, really high. And I think it kind of like brings this sort of challenge on board when you realize that emotional intelligence is one of the core skills that a mediator must have, because I loved how you kept a straight face because I could just imagine how everything is. So, it's my questions. I have two.
I think I can barely hear you. It's kind of stuttered. I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but not clearly. But keep going. I think I'll just whatever the question is, I think I'll just pick it up and say it. So go on, I'm listening to you.
Okay. Well, the first question is, in case of the emergence of ODR, online dispute resolution, and I know Mrs. Chinwich just made mention of certain challenges, but there might be issues, or there might be times when ODR is probably the only option that would need to, be made use of, probably because of distance or one thing or the other may come up. How best do you think one can tackle these challenges as they come, probably technology and network issues, or something relating to when Ms. Chime said something about like a secondary presence or something? Then the second question is...
So let's take one question after the other. The first question is how to handle network issues, right?
Yes.
Network challenges.
So challenges generally, network is one of them, but like challenges in general.
But the word challenges is quite wide, because I'm looking at challenges in terms of the personality of the parties or in terms of everything generally. That's a simple question. So when it comes to network challenge, if that comes up, usually what I do and has always worked for me is that if they have the videos on, I could always tell them to switch off the videos. If that doesn't work, so sometimes I've actually had calls to move mediation sessions from Zoom to Google Teams. I've had calls to move from Google Teams to, in fact, even to WhatsApp video. I can remember I've done a mediation session using a WhatsApp video before. Because you see, one thing about all these platforms is that depending on their bandwidth and the location of the people using it, it just depends on how creative you can be. And it also depends on the stage at which this mediation session is. So, and of course, in this part of the world, there's really nothing we can do when it comes to network challenges. Now, when it also comes to personalities, it's always, if I find emotions are high, most times I just break it into core sessions. Now, what Mrs. Chinwe said about muting people, most times what I do is that it's very, very, very delicate and dicey in the sense that I don't just take away admin privy. I ask. Not even I ask, I just make a statement and I ask parties to let us agree on the fact that parties will take time to talk in turns. And if they don't, then they may not be able to unmute themselves. So sometimes, it's delicate. Sometimes it goes sideways. Most times it doesn't. So actually, you just have to know how and when to put it on. But when it comes to challenges generally, I think the response is that it comes with experience. It comes with experience. It comes with practice. And that's why I'm an advocate of the fact that wherever anybody wants to train for mediation, please train with any organization that would give room for you to mediate. You see, there is no magic about mediation. You become a good mediator when you mediate. You become a good mediator when you practice, when you are consistent. That's the thing. That's the secret. It's not a function of the number of trainings you have, number of seminars that you have, and all that. You just have to practice. Because you see, the bulk of the things you use, sometimes they come in from active listening. So that's just the response I have to challenges. You can only become very good at overcoming challenges when you practice. And if you train with an organization that does not have an enabling environment for you to have cases to handle, then you can have role plays like this. You know, when you go online, you type mediation role plays, you have so many. You can create a community of some sort, and then you guys start doing all these kind of things. Look at what we have here. Mrs. Lolia is a seasoned mediator. Nam Chan is a seasoned mediator. Mrs. Natalia is a seasoned mediator. So every once in a while, we do stuff like this. But we just figured, you know what? Why don't you just bring it to the forelight so that people can actually see what happens? And contrary to public opinion, and mediation is not as easy as people think it is. It is not as easy as people think it is. When you talk about an amicable resolution of issues, because you are managing a lot of things, you're managing emotions, you're managing issues, and you are also human. You're also human because, you know, parties say certain things, and don't forget that parties are also watching you. They're looking out for your reaction. They're looking out for a lot of things. So the best way really to be very good at this is just to practice. Practice. I don't know whether I've been able to answer your question, Catherine, before I move over to Yahaya. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Yahaya, could you please unmute yourself? Let's have your question. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, all. It's been quite an interesting session. I had done some training on mediation some time ago. I did some training, trained the trainers in Lagos. We're in Lagos for 2 weeks. There's something I want to find out. I was quite impressed with your resisting the call to make suggestions on way forward. When the parties suggested, did inquire from you, so what do you suggest? And you reminded them that no, you will desist from making any suggestions, rather the solutions to their problems should come from them. I want to find out, are there any books that one should read, you know, over a period of time so that one becomes, because as you said, yes, you need to really be skilled. You need to develop yourself to the point where you're able to manage situations and be able to curtail, know when to speak, know when to act, to be able to facilitate an amicable resolution of the dispute between the parties. So I want to get your take on, and the take of the other mediators as to what books, if anyone, should read, and so that one can become quite good in this thing. And because it's a very interesting field. It's not one that too many people now are exploring, but it's catching on. So it's better to get on it rather than get left behind. Hello, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Are you done, Mr. Yahaya, so I can take your questions and block? Okay. Interesting.
Yes, I am, Fola.
Okay. Interestingly enough, I have some of my teachers here, and one of them is Mrs. Chinwe. So you see, I'll be very honest with you. The mistake a lot of people make when they go into mediation is that they just go into mediation and it ends there. I think the level of, at the risk of bragging, I don't think I practice mediation. I practice mediation from a higher level of consciousness. I can't think of a better way to put it. So when it comes to skills and training, I can only tell you what I have done and what works for me. I remember I was having a conversation with Mr. Valentino. That's one of the conveners of SCM, and he just said something. He said, mediation is facilitated negotiation. So you know what I did? I went for a course on negotiation. Because you see, if you're going to be a good mediator, you have to be an excellent negotiator. I went for a course at the Lagos Business School on negotiation. Just look behind you. You can see all these things here. Everything is directed towards negotiation. That went back. I remember I witnessed another seasoned mediator, Mr. Kenneth Oyema's session. And one thing he does whenever he comes into his session, he's always all smiles. And you see, when you're talking to somebody when you get into a session and your mediator is all smiles, you see, what he's doing is that there's a certain energy he's bringing into that place that when you get in there, you cannot help but suck in some of that energy. And don't forget that when most people come into mediation sessions, they're always very tense. Because of that, I went into emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence was not good enough. I went into cognitive behavioral therapy to have an understanding of people, to know why people do what they do. So that's why I can sit here and keep a straight face, and you don't have any idea what is going on through me. Now, and it is the understanding of the fact that people sometimes wear their emotions on their sleeves. So I went into that. And you see, so what I basically do is that anything I feel that can make me better at what it is I do, I go in there and I do it. Now, when it comes to books, so here's the problem. I'm not an academic. You know, I'm a very practical person. So I'm not the kind of person that would sit down to start reading books on mediation. But when it comes to skills that I feel can accentuate what it is you do, yes, I'm all that. So that's why I keep hammering on practice, because you see, it's just like driving. Mediation is like driving. You know, how many books do you want to read on driving that will make you an excellent driver, Mr. Abdullah? That's what you can do when it comes to what's it called? When it comes to books. Books have their place when it comes to being a good mediator. But trust me, practice is the most important thing. Being right there, because we're talking about human beings here. And where human beings are concerned, 1 + 1 is not 2. 1 + 1 is whatever parties want it to be. That's the honest truth. Now, so that's basically my response to it. Yeah, there's so many books online, so many journals online that I can read on being a good mediator. But what I would add is I just find an enabling environment where you can get to practice. Because the honest truth is that we all practice mediation one way or the other. The only thing that makes what I do different from what every other person does is that I put structure into dispute resolution. When you're having a misunderstanding with someone, or when you're resolving disputes with someone, you don't get to tell them, you don't get to summarize what it is they say. You don't get to put what the issues in contention are in a form of agenda. What do? You just come in there and just try to see how you can resolve it. I guess you're correct on a very final note. You see, I tell anybody that cares to listen, when I started this mediation practice not so long ago, in 2015, it was basically a function of me trying to convince people to embrace mediation. Now, it's no longer a question of if, it's a question of when. Because you see, when I started doing mediation in 2015, and where we've gotten to right now, it's moving in leaps and bounds. Mr. Abdullah, you would not believe that we now have mediation at the Court of Appeal. I happen to be the first mediator to actually mediate at the Court of Appeal here in Lagos. So if the Court of Appeal is looking into mediation, then that means the Supreme Court is just around the corner. We were having a mediation and Milord came in, one of the justices, and she sat down. He sat down and he was amazed. This matter had been in court for 15 years. Myself and Mr. Valentino, we resolved that matter in less than 3 hours. For a matter that had been in court for 15 years. 15 years. And he said something in passing. He was like, look, we have over 13,000 cases at the Court of Appeal with only 8 justices. There's so much they can do. There's so much they can do. Now, look at what is happening around. You know, people don't really have faith in what's called, people cannot just resort to self-help. They can't resort to self-help. The courts have so many cases they can handle. Now, look at what's happening with technology. You know, people don't no longer care about effort. They want results. So what I tell people is that, you see, mediation is the technology of dispute resolution. And when we talk about technology, what does technology do? It's efficient, it's faster. So whatever it is that you see technology doing to life is what mediation is doing to dispute resolution. Not only that, people now have the option of coming out as friends. I'll use this example of Maiden and Xavier. Look at what has happened. In a way, they both have it. They were able to sustain that business relationship. In a way, they both left with something. It's never like that with litigation. It's never like that with arbitration. There's always this victor vanquished mentality. But if not for anything at all, it's the speed and efficiency, because speed and efficiency really is the language of the 21st century. Effort is no longer the new word now, it is results. So that is why I tell anybody that cares to listen, I sit back now and I just look. It's there. It's there. It's the global acceptance. It's overwhelming, you know, because I mediate with some international organizations, and you see the conversation surrounding mediation now. You don't even want to know how blinding it is, because you've become a mediator in Nigeria and you can mediate anywhere. Or compared to when you have to go to law school, when you're a lawyer in Nigeria, if you go to another jurisdiction, you can become a lawyer. No. You can. So mediation is I don't want to. It's almost on steroids now, because you're a mediator in Nigeria. You can be a mediator anywhere around the world. You know, so it's a conversation that we just need to keep talking about. I'm so sorry. Whenever I talk about it, I just get so carried away.
Can I just quickly add?
Okay, please do. Then we'll take the question.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick one. I mean, in support of what Fola has just said, Mr. Yahaya. Because you mentioned books, I think your interest was in books about mediation. I'm going to put a Zoom link in the chat room that you can check out today. There is actually a mediation book club that's having its maiden review today. So if you're interested in books about mediation, I mean, they review books, I think it's month by month, but you'll know more about it today because this is the first one they're having. So you can probably just check it out and see if it interests you further. But yes, everything that Fola has said is true. The practical side of things in practicing is necessary, but books can also support you if that's where your interest lies as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Lole. So can I take QW5 KXM? Could you unmute yourself before I take Wina? I know your hand was up a while back. Do you want to try and unmute yourself? Okay, yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I am having one question, sir. The question goes like this. Please, is there any room for mediation in criminal cases, or it is only restricted to civil? This is the only question I have. Thank you very much for giving me such an opportunity.
Yeah. Interestingly, there is mediation in criminal matters. In fact, it's called restorative justice. Yes, I also mediate criminal matters too, and there's something that is called the victim offender mediation. Now, for now, it's only restricted to certain types of crime. You know, even though I'm of the school of thought that there's really no case that can be mediated with, even if you talk about murder, even talk about there's really no case that can be mediated. Personally, that's what I think. But for now, we have restorative justice. And yes, in fact, even plea bargain is also some form of mediation. I don't know whether you're aware of that, where someone probably embezzles and the court now reaches an agreement with him or her to pay X amount in lieu of reduced sentences. That's a form of mediation. So yes,
Oh.
yeah, there is mediation in criminal matters. It's just like every other thing. It's just evolving and has not really taken full force. I don't know whether I've been able to answer your question, sir.
Yes, sir, you have answered. Thank you, sir.
So, Wina, could you please unmute yourself? Wina, could you unmute yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Hi,
sir.
Wina, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. What about you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So it was a very wonderful session, sir. I got to learn many new things. So the way you took control of the mediation process and didn't let it be hijacked by the parties. So my question is that generally the mediation process is that, and the work of the mediator is just to facilitate the conversation. This is what we are told. So my question is, can we suggest some ideas or solutions on our own as a mediator to the parties?
So, thank God, my teacher is here. We have two methods. We have the evaluative type of mediation and the facilitative type of mediation. Now, sometimes I always get it all mixed up. I'm coming, let me ask. Ms. Chuma, please, can you help me out with the facilitative and evaluative? I'm so sorry, your student can't remember this. I know you spoke extensively.
So, Fola, you've gotten to the point of unconscious competence. So you're practicing it, and it doesn't matter that you cannot explain it in theory, so it's fine. And even I would not want to go that route of evaluative. And let me just use what you did earlier. At a point when, in the two different caucus sessions, there was a suggestion on continuing with the business relationship, and then, some payment of a token. Now, nobody brought a figure, and you asked one of the council to, you mentioned this. Do you want to, so that we can move on, do you want to mention, a figure? That's like suggesting, put a figure on the table. But you used your questioning skills to do that. Then there are times when even none of the parties have said anything that you have in mind, but your questioning will get them to the point without you suggesting. So my answer to the question is, even if you don't want to suggest, which you don't do, and I generally would not do, there's a way you ask questions and you lead them to the point where it comes to their mind as an option and they suggest it. And Fola did that during the session because they started with, there shall be no payment. So there was $0 rather, on the table. And there was also some attitude of, you know what, this is the end. They are nasty, you must do a public apology and all that. It was the questioning that brought the parties to start thinking of options for settlement. And he also did something, he was encouraging, saying, oh, we're doing well. I like the fact that we're doing this. And then that brings parties to see the light, in the sense that initially they just came, okay, let's just try this. The Council for Margin Airlines even said, this Council for Exceeded, she's so fire, there's so much fire. I mean, she took us to court, now she's forcing us to mediation. At that point, they're not thinking solution, they're just saying, okay, we're here, let's hear what they have to say. But from the questioning, you're taking the parties towards that direction. When parties don't want to start bargaining, what do you do as a mediator? You ask questions like, okay, we've had a discussion on the facts and different positions and all that, but that in mediation, we're trying to get a win-win situation. What ideas do you have that can help us take this mediation forward and we don't have to go back to court? You are now saying, okay, come up with proposals. There are times when parties do not even think of things like a penalty clause. Do you understand? So, or something to really make sure that the enforcement is, done, right? It's not a suggestion per se, but you find mediators saying that in mediation, sometimes we have parties, come up with, clauses that can make sure that there's no default, and if there's default, there's a consequence. You're not saying, I suggest that you write a clause that if someone does not pay within 2 weeks agreed, then the person pay a penalty. You can refer to best practice. Yeah, but the truth is that when you start to suggest, then you're moving from mediation to conciliation. And conciliation is another form of dispute resolution, which people actually, so there's something we call blends in dispute resolution. There's MEDAB, which is mediation arbitration. That's another session altogether. But sometimes people move into conciliation. But at that point, it has to be clear to everyone present that actually you're doing the job of both a mediator and a conciliator. And so it doesn't look out of place. There are some jurisdictions where they feel that mediation actually is more effective when you can suggest in a subtle way. But the original form of mediation actually does not involve suggestions. Fola, looks like we've gone into some training here.
I was going to say so, I'm actually smiling. So very quickly before you go, I don't know, has she answered the question? I'll take you very soon, Mr. Fatugo. 1 second. Has she been able to answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there's actually an interesting angle to your question, and I'm also going to ask her, which also tunes it is this. She has a very interesting perspective on neutrality. So let me see you finally, please, just this last one. Please, what are your thoughts on neutrality? Can a mediator be neutral? I asked because I saw comments about people saying that I had a straight face, even though probably in my mind, I'm like, what's wrong with this woman and all that. But can a mediator, can a human being be neutral? I know we had a question about this once, and because people don't understand the concept of neutrality vis-a-vis a mediator being neutral.
So neutrality is in my action, not in my mind. And well, it starts from the mind actually, and it goes into the action, but neutrality is a position, which is not a position. It is, I am in the middle, I am for nobody, I'm for everybody, if I can sound like a politician. A neutrality, like I said, is a position. It is not an opinion. So I've had mediations where I'm like, oh my God, how can people be this wicked? You have an old woman who is your landlady in a shop. You're telling me in a private session, you have no plans to pay rent for 2 years because she's very rich. She just retired from a bank and she got a heavy payout. She doesn't even need the money. You get, and I must keep that confidential, but I use reality testing to make you see, what you're doing, right? So in my opinion, this person is not good. You are being unfair. However, as a neutral person and someone that must maintain confidentiality, I'm not going to say to her, oh, that's so mean. That is so unfair. That is so unethical. That just totally moves me away from impartiality and neutrality. So you are the blind woman in the justice symbol who is just listening and trying to facilitate a settlement. So the difference is that the mediator has more knowledge that can actually make him or her lose that neutrality or impartiality. But there's a consciousness to remain neutral. And how do you demonstrate neutrality? In the choice of words, in your body language. That's it. So it's a position. It's not my opinion. It's the silence of not even sharing your opinion is actually practicing neutrality. And how do you know you're neutral? The parties will not accuse you of bias. When they start to accuse you of bias and they're not being mischievous, then check yourself. Sometimes parties accuse mediators of bias just to shake them up or to scatter the mediation so that they can do what they want to do. So it's in the action and in the position, not necessarily the opinion. That's the way I see neutrality. I hope that has helped someone.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. So on the light hand of everyone, so when people say Fola is this, Fola is that, Fola is very good in mediation, how can you have someone like Mrs. Chinwe as your teacher and you not come out the best? You understand? So I just thought I should just keep that in. Thank you so much.
Well, my head is picking up.
You yourself, you know everything now. You taught me well. Thank you so much. Okay, so Mr. Fatugo, could you please unmute yourself? So sorry you had to put you on mute for a while. Let's have your feedback, question, comments.
Thank you, powerful Fola. How is everything?
I'm very well, thank you.
I've not seen you on Third Milan riding the bicycle these days.
I did this morning, actually.
Oh, okay. Very quickly, I had used when somebody asked about crime and mediation. I think maybe it's good that that a limit is put on this, because how do you mediate armed robbery? Somebody comes into an environment and kills people for money. Or how do you mediate rape? How do you mediate heinous crimes? I think maybe because I hope somebody is not walking away from this session to think that crime can be mediated, because when I had that answer, I was looking for the statement that there will be some exceptions, because
He mentioned victim. Okay.
yeah, I mean, I understand the restorative justice system of small crimes, of sort of somebody taking, but then the circumstances, even restorative justice, even the circumstances of the crime, could you, because somebody brought a gun and shot somebody and took phone, how do you do restorative justice on that? You understand? So, but if it is just maybe petty crime, petty crime, even you may, I don't know. I don't know how to use the word, but what I'm trying to say is that I think there must be a way to let people understand that some petty crime may not be petty crime. Yeah, maybe you're looking at value. What did he take? He took a phone. No, he shot people in the process of taking a crime of stealing the wristwatch in the house or something. So that's just my understanding. I think we need to have that behind our back.
I hear you, sir, but I think I also share a slightly different perspective. So before I went for an extensive class on restorative justice, it was organized by, so when I was looking back, I was trying to look for which of these links I have there on, it was organized by the restorative justice, and I asked the same question. So I now ask, I'll be a Nigerian and I'll ask, so you see, sometimes some victims just want some kind of closure. Now, one of the reasons why and this is subjective, why I believe that even murder, even armed robbery, even rape can be mediated upon is that there are two parties involved. We have the victim and we have the offenders. For some people, for some victims, sometimes what they want is closure. For some victims, what they want is to see that this person is receiving some type of punishment. Then even the crime itself, I ask, and this is me taking this conversation to a higher level of consciousness. We're all products of our environment. Like when I was growing up, my dad had this song that he would sing, and he would be like, there is no way you would expect the father to be a drunk, to be a thug, the mom to be selling drugs, and you expect the child to come out right. Some people know no life apart from a life of crime. They don't know any other life apart from a life of crime. So if truly the act of throwing people into prisons and all that, if it works, why then do we still have crime? Why is it that most times when people go into prisons and they come out, they don't come out reformed, they come out hardened? So if truly the reformative system of punishment is working, why do we still have so much crime around? So that's why it's a personal opinion, really. Yeah, even though they say that not all kinds of cases can be resolved through mediation, I don't believe there's any case that can be resolved, even in case of rape, even because really and truly, people are products of the environment. And like what Mrs. Chinwe said, you see, there are times where people, no, she didn't say it, but she used the word which subconscious, unconscious incompetence. Some people don't even know that they don't even know at all. So someone who has grown up seeing his father rape women and all of that decides to throw that line, and we feel that, oh, because this has happened, we're going to pick up that person and then throw that person away. So you see, so it's a conversation that is two-edged, but I hear you loud and clear, sir. I hear you loud and yes.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I don't want to. It's just that I just look at it that it will be a dangerous thing to easily.
I agree with you, sir.
Yeah,
Yes. Thank you so much.
It's okay. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So can we now take so we have just 15 minutes. If there is any question, feedback, or comments on anything, yes, you understand. No. If there's any question, feedback, or comments, now would be a good time to take it. And if you have any question at all, we have some seasoned mediators here on ground that will be more than willing to take your questions. So do you have any question? If there is none, then we might as well call it a day. And Dr. Efo, I see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So is there any question? None whatsoever. Okay, so what we intend to do is to keep coming up with interesting scenarios on mediation. So we had one now, we'll probably have another one. And what we'd also be doing is also to be bringing in seasoned mediators for you to actually see what happens back end. And I tell everybody that cares to listen, it's not all cases need to get to court. And the interesting thing about mediation is that more than 60% of the cases that I always mediate upon are cases that should not even smell the four walls of a courtroom. That's the interesting thing. So, you see some cases and you ask yourself one question: what is this case doing in court? What is this case doing in court? And I think it's also very important to state this point here and there that, look, the conversation about mediation is not to come and supplant litigation or arbitration. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that, look, let there be a trajectory of some sort. Mediation should not even be the first option. Negotiation should be the first option. If negotiation fails, then you go to mediation. If mediation fails, then you have the choice of either going through arbitration or go through litigation. We have so many cases in court. And I just believe that if we all embrace it, this world will indeed be a better place. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and for those who came in late and those that might have missed this, we have a YouTube channel where you can always go in there to watch, and please don't forget to click on our subscribe button. I want to thank Nanchan, thank Natalia, thank those that tuned in to join, and you will definitely hear from us very soon. Thank you all and have a good day. God bless you.
Thank you, Fola.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah, my
Great
teacher online. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Great
Bye.
session.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Regard to the ladies, to the girls.